Someone else joining in here. For those just joining, again, today's webinar is going to be about water damage Google Maps rankings, how to get more phone calls. We're going to give you our blueprint that we use and some actionable items for you to be able to take advantage of that. We've got a lot to cover here, so I'm just going to give it about 30 more seconds here to see if anybody else trickles in. But if not, the recording will be available after this, so we'll send that out, and you can obviously feel free to watch that back and go from there. So we are going to go ahead and get started here. So again, my name is Sean McMean from Vinnie Mac Restoration Marketing, and today's webinar is going to be about everything you need to know about water damage Google Maps rankings. And so we're really going to dive deep into some of the struggles that you might be seeing, some of the problems with getting rankings, some of the action items that you can actually do to improve your rankings and to get better results out of Google Maps. And so that way you're not spending all of your resources on just paid ad side. There's a huge value in the Google Maps rankings, and it really helps you generate calls. So without further ado here, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can I get a confirmation in the chat? If you could type a 1 in the chat if you can actually see my screen. If not, one second here. I think technical difficulties. 1 second. You know how that goes sometimes. Okay, here we go. Let's try that one more time. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see that setup there. Just give me one more. Everybody confirm that they can see that screen there? Yes, perfect. Thanks, Abby. All right, again, today is about water damage Google Maps rankings, so let's go ahead and dive into it here. What we're going to cover is just a quick introduction, some common issues we see, our process, what is working, and really set some action items here. We deal with a lot of damage restoration companies across the country. We have around 40 clients now, and my goal of this webinar here is not to, sell you something, and that's not what this is about. It's about to give you action items, and I have a passion for the industry. I've really been doing this over the last 7 years, and my home was flooded just like many other homeowners out there in my basement, and that's how I got into this industry. And we've worked with a number of clients and even done a lot of webinars and sharing this value to help you connect with homeowners that are needing your services, right? And so here's just a sampling of some of those clients all across the country. I have a podcast that you can also get a lot of resources for them, and I'm going to give you a free copy of our book that dives in not only to the Google Maps side of things, but paid ads, website, all of those important aspects to help you raise your brand and visibility out there. And so if you stay to the end, we'll get the book. You'll get some checklists, keyword lists, any sort of information you need to go ahead and move forward with your online marketing, right? Just would ask over the next 30 minutes, try to give me your attention. And if I have some questions or you have some questions, feel free to add them to the chat there. Would love to have a back and forth communication on that. And so my goal in 2024 is really to help double the sales of 50 damage restoration contractors by using internet marketing. And whether that's I'm working with you directly or whether you're getting some value out of webinars or podcasts or the book itself. And so some of the common things we see out there across the industry is there's tons of competition in your local market. The high cost of getting the phone to ring is an extreme. It's getting even more expensive, right? And sometimes those up and down results each month, you don't know where to lean on. And so you really need a proven process in order to get results. And so that's where the harsh reality is that a lot of restoration companies, the vast majority, 10% of those companies are getting 90% of the results. You could be the best company out there and provide an amazing service, but a lot of times homeowners don't know you exist because these other companies are just front and center, and they have more visibility than you. So really what you have to do is tackle the approach and be effective in order to increase your visibility online. And once you do that, you become one of these companies that are not, no one knows who you are. You become one of these best known companies in your area. And a lot of times it's hard to say where to lean in and where to focus on in order to get to that portion. And so today's primarily focus will be about Google Maps, but we also have webinars about local services, Google pay-per-click, designing your website, all of those things that are important to raise that visibility in your local area. So you're not just paying per lead and you're not just relying on referrals, but you're getting a combination and best of both worlds. Okay. If that makes sense, go ahead and type a 1 in the chat there. Does that make sense? Like, maybe where are you at right now? Are you in a situation where you have an online presence, but you're not getting a lot from it? Or is it a situation where you're maybe just paying per lead, or you're just relying on referrals? Feel free to comment in there in the chat where you're at in your journey. And so what you really need to have is a comprehensive approach. And this is sort of our framework here that we use at ViniMac Restoration Marketing for the clients that we work with. And I want to share this knowledge with you because everybody is at different parts of their journey, right? And so maybe you don't have Google Maps dialed in, maybe you don't have the website. You can't do it all at one single time. You just don't have the time and resources in order to do that. But these are the strategies that are going to help you get sustainable success over time. And so like I said before, this is about water damage, Google Maps, and everything you need to know. So I did a webinar at the beginning of the year about what is working in order to get results in 2024. There's what I call a bucket of free traffic ways, a bucket of paid traffic ways. And I'll just do a quick recap of what was covered on that. So the free traffic ways are having a website, having a Google Maps listing, having YouTube, Bing, Apple, Yelp, and social media or a social media platform. And I say free traffic, obviously there's a time commitment and resources in order to get all of that going. Today, we're going to focus on Google Maps here in this bucket. And it is a big bucket that can get filled quite a bit with more phone calls. As far as a reminder on the paid ads traffic side, you have Google Ads, you have Google LSA, and then you have some other social media channels and paid directories out there that you can get visibility on. We're not going to cover this, but if you stay to the end, I'll show you the link to where if you just go to restorationmarketing.com, you're going to have all the webinars that we've recorded. That's going to cover all of these topics, right? So again, I posed the question: do Google Maps matter? And it's a common it's a phrase that people are throwing out there now because Google is really focused on the Google Ads platform and generating more revenue for them. And it's a question out there, and I'm going to pose the question as they absolutely matter. We see it time and time again that Google Maps gets about 44% of the clicks and calls. And so as you can see from this visual here, the top section of the page is Google's a for-profit company, right? And so they're wanting you to spend money on Google local services ads. They're wanting you to do paid pay-per-click ads. But then there's the Google Maps section or the Google Business Profile section that is still very, very prominent out there. And then at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see the organics, right? And so about 50% of the way down, it goes into organics. And in this industry, water damage, people are just not going to dig too deep. They're going to look at who's ever at the top. And as many spots you can have at the top, the more you're going to get the opportunity to get the phone calls from people needing your services, right? And so the answer is yes, absolutely. Google Maps does matter. And when you have a situation like these are what are called geogrids, and what they're doing is these are a few of our clients here. What it's doing is any GPS coordinates, it's searching for the term water damage restoration and where that company shows up. When you have a situation where you have a geogrid set up like this, where you're showing up 1, 2, and 3, the person searching online has no choice but to see your profile on Google Maps, and they're going to see the reviews associated with it and your phone number and your website associated with it, right? And so if you've never had a GeoGrid report ran on your company, feel free to stay to the end. I'll show you how you can sign up for a session with us, and we can run one for you and show you where you rank and show you where you represent versus your competitors. Okay, and so this is just an example of expanding out from your immediate office. You want to be 1, 2, or 3. If you're not, you're pretty much invisible on there. So this is the strategy of what we do to turn our clients from completely red and 20 spot to a situation where they're 1, 2, and 3 across the board. All right. So Google Maps absolutely drives phone calls, and you can't just rely on Google Ads. You need to have multiple positions on the top, right? And so some of the biggest changes that we've seen over the years, and Google has gone through a plethora of changes this year because they're fighting on AI, artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of things going on that front. We're going to do a webinar on AI, but really the biggest changes on Google Maps over the last few years is that there used to be 7 spots in Google Maps. Now there's only 3, so there's very little real estate for you to compete, right? And so Google Maps has also introduced paid ads within the maps. So sometimes you'll see 3 listings for organic side, and then you'll see a paid ads right on top of that, right? And so there's just less real estate there. And then on top of that, you have Google Local Services now at the top of the page. Then you have PPC, and so Google Maps gets pushed down a little bit lower. But there's ways to overcome it, and I'll show you those. A lot of times, newer restoration businesses out there that are just starting, maybe they don't have an address or a business address, and that can be a really difficult thing in the water damage space because Google, they're fighting a lot of spam, right? And so we'll talk about verification issues, and it's hard to expand in metropolitan areas. It's a real common issue, and we'll talk about those. And then reviews are a major part of the success of everything online. So I always like to say the you can shout with a bullhorn on top of the roof saying, hey, we provide water damage, mold, fire cleanup services. But if you do not have people backing up that with Google reviews saying that you're a good company, not as many people are going to hear you shouting that, right? And the same thing holds true online. So let's dive into it again. I showed this graph before. Again, at the top of the page, you have Google Guaranteed or Google Local Services. You have Google Ads. Then you have your Google Maps. And then you have Google Organic. And this is the typical setup of any search profile online in the water damage space. It might look a little different in your area depending on what keyword you search and whatnot. But typically, if you're going to go after water damage restoration in a specific location, this is how it will look, okay? And so what we want to do as business owners is we want to make sure we're controlling as many spots on that page for highly relevant keywords as possible. And so I've highlighted 3 sections here. The top one is Google Guaranteed. And then you have Google Maps, and then you have organic down below here, okay? And obviously this webinar is about Google Maps, but Google Maps is very interconnected with Google Local Services ads now. And so I highly recommend that if you have a Google Maps location, you also have a Google Local Services connection because it pulls in those reviews. And again, you get 2 high effective real estate spots on that page for those terms. And those, you will typically get a really good ROI on Google Local Services and Google Maps. Pay-per-click is usually more expensive, and it's just the where things are at right now. And so if you can have 1, 2, or 3 spots across this homepage, you're more likely to get the calls. And so what I would recommend doing, if you have a Google Maps location, sign up for Google Local Services, put some budget on that. I've got a webinar. If you go to restorationmarketing.com, you'll see a webinar for Google Local Services and how to get signed up for it if you're not already. Here's one of the things that I found amazing is that it used to be the Wild West in Google Maps. Anybody could throw up a Google Maps listing and you could get phone calls coming to it, and you could, it was just out of control. And Google realized that in around 2015, 2016 that they had to fight against this. There were too many local businesses that were getting negatively impacted by people that were not in the industry, didn't have a business, and they were selling these leads to other people, right? And so what this means for us now is that 70% of those listings that they found have been removed since 2015, right? And so it's really good for those of us that are doing it right and actually have a legit business and are trying to do the right thing. And so it's a huge opportunity if you follow these processes in order to get your rankings up there, right? And so I know I'm doing a lot of talking right now. Everybody understand? Kind of give me a 2 in there if makes sense what we're talking about here. Getting some value out of it. I really appreciate the engagement there. Thanks, Zach. One of the other things that I want to talk about here is what could be hurting your rankings in Google Maps. And these are some real things that we see on a daily basis that when I talk with other restoration companies that are either misaligned or not set up correctly. Number one, you need to have an off if you're trying to rank in a city, especially a metropolitan city, like let's say it's Kansas City. You do water damage restoration Kansas City. You need to have an address in that city. And so sometimes people will say, well, my address is 20 miles outside of the city or 10 miles outside of the city. I just will tell you that you're never going to overtake those companies that are in the actual city. Zach, you had a question here. Is Maps the same as your Google My Business page, or is it separate? It is absolutely the same. Google My Business was renamed to Google Business Profile. Google's famous for changing their names all over the place, but it's absolutely the same thing. It's called Google My Business or Google Business Profile or GBP or GMB. There's a lot of different varying names. Hopefully that helps there, Zach. But yes, so if you are trying to get leads from your Google Maps profile in a city that you're not located in, it's much more difficult now, okay? And so in order to address this, you need to have an address in your, thanks, Zach. You need to have an address that is in that city. And I know it's difficult sometimes, right? And you say, okay, I want to get leads from Kansas City, but I'm outside of the outskirts. I'm not saying go and change your business location or anything like that, but that could be a real reason why you're not getting the rankings that you feel like you should be. And the other reason is if your address is not shown. If your address is not shown on your Google Maps profile, it's called a service area business, or they call it a SAB. And so having your address shown is much more beneficial in this industry than it is to say, hey, I'm going to do a big circle around Kansas City or Chicago and say, we service the whole thing. And the reason why that's important is it's about proximity in Google's eyes. So Google, again, is a for-profit company. They want people to come back to Google and keep asking for those searches, right? And keep getting the ad revenue from it. And so what really Google has to do is they have to pair that searcher with somebody that's close to them in that area. And so if you can have your address there that make it super crystal clear that you're in this area, you can help people in that area. So the other thing is don't if you had spam listings in the past or fake listings in the past, don't try to do any of that anymore. You're going to hurt your business profile online, hurt your website. Google's very keen to this, especially in this industry. The other two industries that I know from experience are difficult because I have friends that are in those types of markets is garage doors and lawyers and water damage. It's one of the 3 most competitive areas out there, right? And so we have the water damage side, and we just know you don't want to play in that game anymore. Having an inconsistent name, address, and phone number profile online is a big factor as well. If you have your name ABC Damage Restoration, right, and then you change it in a different verbiage or a different thing, Google views it as a whole different company. That's just because it's a computer. They don't know the difference, right? And so the other thing to watch out for is if you try to spam the name of your Google Maps profile and put in the city and keyword, but that's not really your business name. Those listings get flagged, they get taken down. And so if you're going to do that, so let's say you live in Boston and your name of your company is ABC Boston Damage Restoration, you better have a DBA or doing business as and documentation with that on there, or Google is going to flag that listing and you're not going to get prominence for it. Now, I do recommend, if you don't have any sort of restoration in your company name, you're going to struggle with getting restoration leads. It's not impossible, but it does help you to have restoration in the name, because that's the primary category when you set up your profile. And then finally, the other thing we see is you're just not getting enough reviews, and we're going to dive more deeply into that here shortly. Okay. So here is our proven formula for getting ranked in the Google 3-pack. And what is the Google 3-pack? The Google 3-pack is basically the 1, 2, 3 spots that are in there. And what you really need to be able to do is have a business profile with lots of trust signals. Okay, you need to have brand authority. Google needs to know about your brand name, and that's why it's important to have that brand name consistent across it. If there's a dash in it, if there's a LLC in it, you should have that very consistent across all your profiles and leave it that way. But make sure you have your DBA and all that set up. And so these are some of the things that you want to look at. You want to make sure your profile is verified. You can do this with a video verification or a live video recording. You used to be able to use postcards and email and phone, but those are pretty much non-existent anymore. So you usually have to do a video verification or open a support ticket and do a live video recording with a Google rep in the water damage space. Another thing, we talked about reviews. You need to make sure you have as many reviews, or building up to as many reviews as your competitors. And you need to make sure that those reviews are happening on a monthly basis. If you're getting 3 to 5 reviews a month, whether they're people you're doing work with, people that recommend you, you need to be doing them on a consistent basis. If your profile has been suspended and reactivated, that's a good thing sometimes. Google will relearn what your profile is doing. It's not always a good thing, but it's something that we've seen some benefits. Once you get your profile re-verified, you actually get a big boost from that. And then the other thing on the back end, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. You want to be uploading photos. You want to make sure you set your holiday hours, replying to reviews, and complete the full profile. If Google gives you a setting in that business profile, you should have some information in there. You should have a cover images of your people doing work, or your team, or your office area. Okay. The other thing is some link strategies. So this is something that we've been rolling out and looking at in more in depth. Is we want to get links from local people in our area. And so what I mean by this is hosting community events and doing a local resource page. These are our partners of people that we work with in the area, or community organizations that we support. Sponsor a scholarship, whether it's $1,000 or $500, it doesn't matter. Sponsor a scholarship, and then when that scholarship talks about, when that organization talks about your organization, get a link back from them, right? These are all local relevant things that will help you get a lot of, these are different than what other people are doing out there, and it's going to help you get a lot of impact on the local relevancy side of things. And that's the most important aspect of Google. You have to be locally relevant for them to recommend your company, okay? And so those are some things there. Claim and optimize your business profile. There's a lot of words on this slide here, so feel free to look back at this or take a screenshot. But these are some of the punch list items that I commonly see wrong on profiles, or not properly filled out profiles. You want to make sure that your company is correct, right? And so I talked about before, adding keywords in there that are not in your DBA or your actual business license will get you into trouble. You want to make sure your website address is on there. And it's linked towards the actual homepage of your website, not your contact page. Link it to your homepage. Use a local number. 800 numbers used to sound fancy, and oh, I got an 800 number, right? Use a local number. Use an area code that is in that area, so that you give that local relevancy. Use a local address. You cannot no longer use PO boxes or UPS store boxes. Those just don't work anymore. If you have one and you still have it, you're in luck, right? But you can't enlist new addresses for those locations anymore. Make sure you're uploading photos as much as possible, using a personal side of it, right? People like to do business with people, and that's where you take photos of your job, take photos of your team and your staff that's actually doing work, and those are all important things. Make sure hours are correct. In this industry, I've seen before where Google representative will say, well, what hours are your business open? Is it open 24/7 or is it open 8 to 5? Well, our office is open 8 to 5. Well, and pretty much everybody in the water damage space does works 24/7, right? So make sure your hours on GBP or Google Maps is 24/7. And then connect all your social profiles. This is a new enhancement that Google is really looking at. They like social signals. So there's a way now that you can connect in your settings, connect your Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and Twitter accounts to that. And they actually pull that content into your Google business profile. So those are some important aspects there. And again, just to reiterate some best practices, because that slide was very wordy there. And again, you'll have a copy of this, but the best practice for Google Maps profile, upload photos, add them on a consistent basis. Leverage Google Posts by posting 2 to 3 times every week. And when you post those out there, make sure you're linking back to your website, your services that you have, the locations you service, your review page, all of those sort of aspects. Your Google Maps profile and your website are very interconnected. Okay. Get reviews consistently. Compare how many reviews you have compared to your competitors. If you have 10 reviews in when you search water damage restoration in your area, like say water damage restoration Kansas City, and you see that they have 50, 60, 80, it's going to be difficult for you to compete in that space until you can have more consistency. And I'll talk about the review, some key insights about reviews on how you can overtake those people that have higher number of reviews in just a second here, okay? If you do get reviews, respond to the positive ones and respond to the negative ones. And it's self-explanatory. Respond to the negative ones in a professional manner, even if you don't agree with what they have to say. And then finally, ask questions on your profile and or answer questions on your profile that you have there, even if you need to put some seeder questions and then respond to them, that's okay too. So another important aspect here, and you maybe have heard of these or not, but they're called citations, or the citations are basically online directories like Foursquare and Yellow Pages and all of these things like that. What this does is you don't get a lot of business from this, but it gives you a lot of positive signals that Google is looking for, saying that your business is out there and prevalent and important. And so all these other sites or have a link, have your name, your address, and your phone number on them, right? And so I'll talk a little bit of how to build these citations just a second here. If you want to find out how your business is doing, you can go to this link here right now. Well, after the webinar here, preferably go to restorationmarketing.com/local scan report, and you can put your business in there. And if you have a Google Maps profile, it's going to pull that in and do a local scan report all across the internet for you and see how everything stacks up. And ultimately, what it's going to come back is looking at your local listings, your reviews, your Google Maps audit, your social channels, and give you a good profile score of whether it's red, yellow, orange, or green, and give you some free information there on how you're doing. Okay. There's something called data aggregators online, and these are companies that distribute business information online. They're called Infogroup, Foursquare, and Newerstar. They're an important aspect of things as well. So when you're doing citation building, you want to look into what's called data aggregators. We set these up for a client, and it distributes their information out to a whole bunch of other places online, so that your Google recognizes that you're an established business, just like the big boys out there. So it's an important aspect. I talked about reputation, so let's dive a little bit more into the review side of things. Everybody still with me here? Put a 9 in there if you're still with me. I know I'm talking fast, but we got a lot of information to cover here, and I just want to make sure everybody's got it. Okay, awesome, Zach. Thanks for that. Abby, thanks. So on reputation, you want to display your reviews on your website. You want to monitor reviews, and you want to reply to those reviews. And we want to request reviews from most jobs. We know that in this industry, sometimes you do not want to request reviews because there was an issue going on, right? So that's totally understandable. But if there wasn't, you should be requesting a review from every job that you do. I know we're all trying to be as helpful to homeowners, but sometimes there's dynamics with the insurance and all of those things that it can get ugly, right? And so it's a real problem, but don't be afraid of negative reviews. You can always respond to them and outweigh positive reviews. By just being consistent with it. And so you'll see here, this client here has 4.9 rating with 934 reviews. It has helped them tremendously, and they really bought into the review strategy, right? And so online reviews are extremely important. The review count is important. How do you stack up against your competitors? A real search. So search in your area, see how many reviews they have, like I said before. The other important aspect is new reviews are the most important. So if you have a company out there that has 100 reviews and they've only over the last 6 months got 1 or 2 additional reviews, they are going to drop in the rankings versus a company that may be newer that has 20 or 30 reviews, but they're getting new consistent reviews. So sometimes if you have a profile that's set up and you're like, I have more reviews, but I'm not showing up, that's because those other companies are being more consistent with getting new reviews on their profile. And this is a big factor that's really weighed heavily in 2024 here and going into 2025. You want to make sure you're getting review consistency. If you can get 4 or 5 reviews per month, that's a good consistency. Anything more than that is amazing. So respond to those positive and negative reviews and be professional in those replies. What it says in the review matters as well, but do not ask people to spam the keywords in the review. So a lot of times this old strategy would be, hey, customer, can you submit a review for me? Make sure you say, well, letting them post what they want to post, but talk about your actual results and what they did for you and what you did for them. Okay. I got an alert here said my internet connection seems a little funky, but I just want to make sure everybody's still hearing me. Hopefully you can still hear me. If you could hit a 1 in there, that would be amazing. Awesome. Okay. Sometimes I don't know, I'm frozen, but I can still hear you. Okay. So, all right. So here we go. So strategy for driving more consistent reviews: leverage tools, use text messaging, email, use review cards. So like you can have a QR code that they can scan and submit a review card for you. Train your text to plant the seed and deliver a world-class, experience, right? And if they can, as soon as they give you a compliment, that is usually the best time to ask for a review. Okay. So make a call after the job is completed or after you initially solve the issue for them and walk them through the review process. On Google Maps, you need to have a Google account. Anybody that has a Gmail account, they're easily going to be able to submit a review for you. If they don't have a Gmail account, you might want to send them to Yelp or Facebook or Yellow Pages or those profiles to get a review that way. And obviously build reviews into the culture of your company. If you can get your team to buy onto it and you believe it as the owner, you're going to have more success. It's not enough to just say, hey, I'm going to pay my team $25 every time they submit a review. First of all, it's against Google's terms of service to pay for reviews. And second of all, that's only going to go so far. If it's a part of their job and they're submitting reviews as part of their job because they know they're going to build up the company and get paid, it's a part of your company culture and it's an extremely important part of it. 5-star reviews will help you improve your rankings on Google Maps, and it will give you a tremendous boost there. It will definitely increase the conversions because people have the Amazon effect. It's a situation where if you've ever shopped on Amazon, you're not going to go purchase a product that has a 3.2 rating or no reviews at all, right? You're going to go after a company that has a good rating, a good review count. And so I know I'm talking a lot about reviews, but it's an extremely important factor here in your business and will help you provide credibility in getting people to call you, right? The final thing in here is don't ignore your website SEO, okay? There's a direct correlation between Google Maps and what you say about your website, okay? And what you say you do on your website. So the services and everything you provide. There's a lot of ranking factors. I'm not going to go in individually every single one of these. A couple webinars ago, I talked about SEO specifically, and we really deep dive into a lot of these things here, what's important to follow there. But off page is an extremely important part, and Google Maps is associated with that. And on pages are the keywords. So these are common keywords you want to be using in your content, your service pages, and all of those things. Whether it's water restoration, mitigation, restoration company, broken pipes, all of those sort of keywords here. I'm going to give you access to all of these keywords that we use, whether you're doing water, mold, or fire. And you can work in these city locations into these keywords, right? So you can say, fire, Chicago Fire Damage Restoration Services, Chicago Fire Restoration Company, right? All of those sort of main city name and keyword will help you with a lot of that relevancy. And if you put it on your website, you're going to have a lot of success with that. So there's going to be again the resources we're going to send out afterwards here. You can see how you can download all of those keywords that we have there on that. So like I said before, the goal here is to have multiple spots on that first page. You don't always have to run Google pay-per-click to get phone calls in the water damage space. You can have a Google Maps listing, you can have a website, and you can have Google Local Services. And that gives you 3 spots that you can potentially take control of that first page there and get more water damage calls, right? And so hopefully you got some good information out of this. If there's anything that you have any questions on, I do have one other section here to kind of go over here, and that's really some action items that you're going to take here. I want to leave time for questions. I know we're over the 30 minutes at this point. It was a lot of information to go over, but if there are any questions, go ahead and post them in the chat while I go over this final section here. Excuse me. Go ahead and post them in the chat there if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Anything got you stuck there, or anything that you might need help with. One of the things that I really feel important is that we come away with some ideas, right? If you take a look at this list here, these are some of the most important things here. Make sure your listing is claimed and optimized, right? Make sure you're doing some sort of citations. Run that free scan report that I gave you in that link there. And then also make sure you have data aggregators set up. You want to have a system in place to drive online reviews, and you want to do new citations on an ongoing basis. Connect your Google Local Services ads to Google Maps. Make sure you're posting content on a regular basis. You're building links and authority. I talked about those local links for scholarships or organizations you're a part of on a local resource page on your website. Use keywords, and I'm going to give you that keyword list. Make sure you're using that on the title of each of your pages, and use unique content on those pages. Google has a section in Google Maps where you can put a link to all of those pages and services. So I'm going to get your questions there, Zach and Abby, in just one second. And then you also want to make sure your website is set up where you have a page for each service and for each of the cities that you serve in. And then use those links into your Google post so that you link everything. It goes back to your website. So hopefully that makes sense there. All right, so let's get into the questions. What is appropriate ad budget for Google Ads and LSA? It's a great question. Zach, it depends on the competition in your area. Zach, are you in a large metropolitan area? Are you in a smaller mid-market area, or just in a rural area? You're in Dallas. Okay. Dallas is super, super competitive. I was just talking with somebody not too long ago in that market. You have easily 30 to 40 plus competitors on Google Ads out there, right? And so one of these things that you have to do in a very competitive market is you can't use a scattergun approach with a shotgun. You have to use a sniper approach in order to be effective. None of us have blank checks to write here in any of this. And so PPC is very expensive in metropolitan areas, but you can drive down the cost by focusing on zip codes and areas within the Dallas market that are more likely to have homeowners that are going to fit your criteria. And so that's what I mean by the sniper approach. As far as a budget, we typically do not start a budget in a metropolitan area like that on Google Ads specifically below 5,000 a month. And the reason being is that the cost per click can sometimes range from $80 to $120 for highly competitive keywords, right? And so if you start any less than that, and somebody tells you, hey, you can get by with $1,000 or $1,500 in Google pay-per-click specifically, it is just not the reality of the situation anymore in Google pay-per-click. And so LSA is a very similar component of that. There's only 2 spots on LSA at the top, right? And so if you you can set your budget extremely high in LSA, and I'd highly recommend to watch the Google Local Services webinar that I have. I talk a little bit more about budget and the actual settings in there that you can set. If you have Google LSA, I usually recommend set that budget high, but watch it closely and get tons of reviews on that profile. Put tons of photos on there. And that's going to help you win a little bit more in that space. But hopefully that answers your question a little bit. I would, in a Dallas market, if you're trying to cover any wide area in Dallas, you're going to need to be spending $5,000 in Google Ads. It could go up there based on the results and everything like that. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but if you're doing mitigation and restoration, yeah, huge ranges. Yeah, that's right. Thanks. I've heard huge ranges. Same with SEO. Yeah, it's huge ranges in these metropolitan areas. South Florida is another area that's very competitive. Houston, super competitive. California is super competitive. Everybody and their brother is looking for those same leads as you, and they're willing to pay more on pay-per-click if they don't have SEO results or have bought into the review strategy and have their website built out enough. And so I highly recommend a comprehensive approach where you're not just relying on Google Ads. You have to have all these other components, like I talked about before, in place. I'll show you exactly what I was talking about there. Here's some of our clients that we have, but this is really our approach here. It's our proven process. You want to increase your visibility, you want to increase your brand awareness, and you want it, which is ultimately going to help you increase your conversions, right? And you need to have all of these components in play in this industry to have the most success. And I get it if you're just starting out and you don't have the investment money to do all of these components. You're like, well, where do I start with, right? Have a simplistic website, get reviews on your Google Maps profile, have Google Local Services, and if you're gonna run Google Ads, I'm telling you, you're gonna need to commit to that to at least 3 months, if not more, of spending $5,000 to start with, and it can go up. We have clients that are spending $10,000 or more sometimes. So it's hopefully that answers your question there. Abby, you had a question. What is my business profile? Why is my business profile showing with a duplicate listing area? Yeah, that's one that I see commonly. What usually causes that is that that either someone created another business profile for you in the past, or Google created their own profile and for you, and for some reason you have 2 listings out there. The best way to uncover if you have 2 listings is to, number 1, search your company name or variations of your company name, or number 2, search for your address. And so if you show 2 listings out there, the listing that you have access to and the listing that has the most reviews is the one that I would roll with. And then you can flag the duplicate listing as a duplicate listing, and Google will remove that listing so it doesn't cause any confusion. It might sound like, oh, I've got 2 listings out there, but if those 2 listings have the same company name at the same address, they're fighting against each other, okay? So you want to have 1 listing at 1 address. You can have multiple Google Maps profiles, but if you have two listings at the same address, that's called a duplicate listing, and it's going to hurt you more than it will help you. Hopefully that answers your question there, Abby. Any other questions you might have on Google Maps? So as I said before, I'm going to give you the resources here. If you go to restorationmarketing.com/2024, you're going to have the resources that you can download there. We're going to have a replay of this session that we're going to send out afterwards as well. And I'd be more than happy to join a call with you. Have some specific questions about your company. You go to restorationmarketing.com/calendar and schedule a Zoom session for me. And I will do a deep dive into your specific Google Maps profile, into your scan report that I showed you earlier, and help you understand anything that would help you get more phone calls, honestly. Any other questions out there, Abby or Zach? You guys have anything else burning for you? Nope. Okay. So I really, no thanks. Great answers. Awesome. Yeah, awesome, Zach and Abby. And for all the other ones that had joined the webinar here and watching the replay, hope you got some value on this. If you have any questions, you can either text me or call me at that number, or you can schedule an appointment there. We'd love to chat with you and, do an evaluation for you and kind of go from there. So have an amazing day, and thank you guys for attending the webinar.